Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just jump right into it because we are looking at a literal geopolitical earthquake happening right next door. Today, we're unpacking a political shift in Bangladesh that is, honestly, it's almost unimaginable. You've got former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina suddenly fleeing to India to live in exile, and overnight, the whole political landscape gets completely rewritten. We're talking stunning reversals of fortune where historical convictions are just wiped clean. So let's dig into how this happened and what this massive power shift means, not just for Bangladesh, but for the entire South Asian region.
Now, here's the big question. How in the world do three men go from literally facing the ultimate penalty, the death penalty, to suddenly winning democratic elections and walking into parliament? I mean, normally that sounds like an absolutely impossible scenario, right? Like something out of a movie. But this is the actual reality playing out in Bangladesh today. In the wake of Sheikh Hasina's sudden exit, the entire judicial and political framework shifted so fast, turning former death row convicts into newly minted lawmakers almost overnight.
And this brings us to the idea of a clear break. The recent national election, which is the first one since the fall of the Hasina government, isn't just your standard transition of power. No, it is a definitive, shocking break from the past. It's an absolute reversal of historical judgments. And to really wrap our heads around the sheer magnitude of this break, we need to zoom in on three highly controversial guys who are sitting right at the very center of this massive reversal.
Section 1. Meet the controversial figures.
So let's take a look at who these men actually are and the heavy, heavy baggage they're carrying. First up, we've got Lutfozzaman Babar and Abdussalam Pintu. Both of these guys are with Tariq Rahman's Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or the BNP, which, by the way, is the party that just swept the national election. Then we have ATM Azharul Islam from Jamaat-e-Islami. Now, his party actually lost the election, but Islam himself still managed to secure his spot. And what's wild here is that all three of these men were facing the most serious charges you could possibly imagine. Let's actually break those down.
Take a look at this number. 1200. Let that sink in. It's a staggering number that really highlights the severe magnitude of the past charges leveled against ATM Azharul Islam. He was a top Jamaat leader until 2012, and he was allegedly responsible for the deaths of over 1,200 people during the 1971 Liberation War. On top of that, he was also accused in 13 separate rape cases. Because of the sheer scale of these massive crimes, Islam was handed the death sentence back in 2014. Yet, fast forward to today, and he's heading straight for the sacred halls of Bangladeshi's democracy. It's just wild to think about. Then there's Abdussalam Pintu, and from neighboring India's perspective, his background is deeply problematic. Aside from his alleged role in a major 2004 grenade attack in Bangladesh, Pintu was accused of actively backing Pakistan's terror group Harkat al-Jihad al-Islami, or HUJI. This is the specific group blamed for massive, devastating cross-border attacks in India, like the Varanasi court blasts in 2006, the Ajmer Sharif Dargah bombing in 2007, and the Delhi blasts in 2011. So we're talking about incredibly serious terrorism charges here.
Section 2. Cleared by the interim administration.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, how did they get out? Chronologically, this reversal happened at breakneck speed. Let's rewind a bit. Back in 2004, there's this massive grenade attack targeting Sheikh Hasina. She narrowly escapes, but 24 people are tragically killed. Babar, Pintu, and their party leader Tariq Rahman are all convicted. Jump to 2014, and Azharul Islam gets his death sentence. But then we hit 2024, and everything just flips. In December, a high court acquits Rahman, Babar, and others. Sheikh Hasina flees the country for India. And then, U.S.-returned Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus steps in to lead an interim administration. Following Yunus taking charge, the names of all three of these men are entirely cleared. Just like that, the slates are completely wiped clean. So what happens the second those slates are wiped clean? Look at this massive voter turnaround. Abdussalam Pintu, the man previously accused of backing terror groups, wins his parliamentary seat by an incredible margin of at least 2 lakh votes. That's 200,000 votes. And his colleague, Babar, secures a massive victory too, beating his nearest rival by 1.6 lakh, or 160,000 votes. In just a matter of days, following the oath ceremony of Tariq Rahman, these guys transition seamlessly from facing the ultimate penalty to representing hundreds of thousands of citizens in the new parliament. It's literally an overnight transformation.
Section 3. India's security perspectives.
Deeply disruptive. That is the exact phrase being used right now. From New Delhi's strategic point of view, this whole election outcome marks a clear, unavoidable break from the immediate past. Privately, Indian officials have described the interim administration phase, the setup led by Muhammad Yunus where all these leaders were cleared, as a deeply disruptive period for diplomatic ties between the two nations. It was, without a doubt, a time of immense tension and major uncertainty for India's security apparatus. Now, let's contrast these two phases. We just talked about how tense and disruptive New Delhi found that interim setup under Yunus. But interestingly, when the focus shifts to the incoming leadership under Tariq Rahman's BNP, the vibe completely changes. Even with these highly controversial figures now sitting in parliament, India is actually looking at this new BNP era with a sense of strategic anticipation. They're hoping for a much more pragmatic, workable relationship than whatever they were just dealing with during the interim setup.
Section 4. The geopolitical road ahead.
And that brings us to this exact phrase Indian officials are using to frame their outlook on dealing with Tariq Rahman moving forward: cautiously optimistic. Take a second and think about that. We just ran through a list of lawmakers who were literally on death row for war crimes and terror attacks against India, yet official channels are choosing to be cautiously optimistic about this new administration. So why is that? Well, India is expecting a pragmatic shift for a few really concrete reasons. First off, economic realities. Bangladesh desperately needs economic survival and growth, and you just can't get that without a working relationship with your biggest neighbor. Second, regional stability. Neither side wants or can afford total chaos at the border. And third, there's a shared need to just move past historical differences. Look, New Delhi fully acknowledges their past relationship with BNP governments was rocky, but they are betting that Rahman is going to be driven by cold, hard practicality. We're talking diplomatic pragmatism here, rather than old historical and ideological clashes. Which leaves us with one final, absolutely vital question. Will economic realities actually outweigh a history of conflict in this new Bangladesh? Will the demands of practical, everyday governance be enough to overshadow the deeply controversial and, frankly, violent pasts of these newly cleared leaders? It is a high-stakes geopolitical experiment happening right before our eyes, and you better believe the entire region is watching to see if this pragmatic gamble pays off. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on South Asia, because this story, it is far from over.